welcome. We are here today with Marcus Geromes. He is joining us from Nashville via Boston, via Kentucky. He's the co-founder and CEO at Therapy Space, but has an interesting background that we are starting to uncover. And I said, let's hit record before we do that. So Marcus, thanks for making time. Thanks for letting Geo stalk you on LinkedIn and responding and joining us today.
Of course.
That is true.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to see where this goes.
So are we. Okay.
So are we.
Okay. So we know what you're doing now, and we have lots of questions about that experience and that business model. But yeah. Okay. So tell us about the transition from master's degree in theology and now the business that you're running. Give us the Marcus Jerome story.
All right. Well, brief synopsis of that story. I went to seminary after I went to University of Kentucky for undergrad. And I loved that. I always wanted to be an Orthodox priest, so I knew I was going to seminary after undergrad. And being Greek Orthodox, there's one Greek Orthodox seminary in the United States, Holy Cross. It's in Brookline, Mass. Amazing experience. I loved every minute of it. One of my professors, my pastoral theology professor, was a marriage and family therapist. Great guy. Loved the course. And when I was ready to finish school, I wasn't ready to get ordained quite yet. My wife and I, we weren't married yet at the time. So I wanted to go ahead and get married. I wanted to work, wanted to have children, just kind of mature a bit and just kind of grow up. And before I looked at ordination. So after seminary, we got married and we moved to Nashville for my wife's residency. And we love the city. Her grandmother is here. Her aunt and uncle are here. My family's close in Kentucky. So we loved it. This is where she went to undergrad at Vanderbilt. So it was a good fit. And while I was here, I like I said, I wasn't ready to get ordained, but I wanted to do something pastoral. And I really loved my pastoral theology class. And so I thought I would apply to a master's of marriage and family therapy program. And that's not an uncommon degree combination.
Okay.
MDiv and an MFT degree. Those are fairly common is probably the wrong way to describe it, but they're not too uncommon anyway. So I thought I would do that. I really enjoyed the program, and I was like, okay, I'll work as a therapist, enjoy being married and all of that. And then in time, get ordained. And I was working at a great agency in town. It's called the Refuge Center. It's in Franklin, Tennessee, and they're a nonprofit. Yeah. They're wonderful. Amy Alexander and Jen Gillette are the co-founders of that agency. And they took a risk on me, let me be an intern there, do my postmaster's fellowship, all of that, get my hours in. Really enjoyed it. But with the training that I got there, I was sort of ready for private practice. So I went after school right into private practice and leased a little spot with some friends, and really enjoyed that. Some of my friends were trying to sublet for me, and which was great. That started to kind of get the wheels turning. And long story short, we just realized a lot of people weren't getting into private practice. They were going into agencies, and not getting compensated so well for their time. Oftentimes working a lot of hours. And so there was a little bit of a higher burnout rate in agency settings, community mental health, these sorts of things. So it's really noble work, really great work, but just higher turnover than general. So started to recognize perhaps there's a way that we can help alleviate some of the financial burden to help people get into private practice. My good friend and co-founder, Dr. Noah Zapp, he was a staff therapist at the Refuge Center. And we were great friends, and we were talking about how can we help solve this problem. We didn't know what co-working was at all. We had no clue. We didn't have any jargon.
Was this?
This was 2014.
Okay. That's
still late 2014.
Earlier in sort of the executive offices have been around for decades, right? But WeWork was, I don't know, 20 anyway. It's still kind of early. It's not surprising you that it wasn't clear. Yeah.
So we had no clue. we thought like, okay, what are the ways we can help, again, therapists get into private practice? So we leased our first space. We had a great landlord in Brentwood, Tennessee, who took a risk on us. Two young guys who had no, at least I had no credit history, certainly no business history, but she was great. Dorothy Keenan is her name. She owns a lot of real estate in Nashville area. She's very generous with us and took a big risk. I know that now because finding space now is increasingly difficult, even with 8 years of credit history and no late payments. It's difficult.
And a pandemic.
And a pandemic, it's hard to get space. It's become more difficult, not less difficult. So we're really thankful to her as well. As I'm talking, I'm realizing there are a lot of people along the way that I'm very thankful for that helped sort of make this possible. But we started our first location.
Go ahead, thank everybody.
Yeah. Well, as I tell the story, I'm like, there are a lot of people that took risks on us. They did. They really helped us along. And so that's how it started. We got started with our first place there in Brentwood, and we started leasing space out to therapists, anybody in the general mental behavioral health fields, therapists, psychiatrists, psychologists, 1 day a week up to full time, kind of depending on their needs. And we'd go in and we'd provide Wi-Fi and coffee, and we'd furnish the space and just try to make it as turnkey as possible for them. And that's where it started.
How many square feet and how was the space built out?
So originally it was at 2,400 square feet was our first location, 18 to 2,400, I think. At that time, it was amazing because landlords were paying for TI. Now that doesn't seem to be the case. They don't quite pay for TI.
I think really market specific. I have folks who get turnkey build outs in specific markets. So we could talk about markets later. It may be that
that is true. That's true. We're doing one in Texas
everybody's
now.
moving to Nashville, or
Yeah, that's true. In Nashville, we found that they're less willing to pay for TI now than they were when we first started. Texas, we're doing one. We'll open one in late May, early June, and landlord was willing to pay for a larger portion of that.
Where in Texas?
Frisco, Texas.
Okay.
Outside of Dallas.
Yeah, we know Frisco. We had our industry, I mentioned the industry associations called the Global Workspace Association. We had our conference at the Omni there next to the Cowboys practice stadium. Yeah, and we have a mutual industry friend and personal friend that has a space in Frisco called 25 North, not therapy related at all. Okay, so sorry.
Okay, cool.
2,000-ish square feet broken up into private like therapy suites.
Yeah. Okay. They were always private. It was never like kind of the WeWork open floor plan model.
Yeah.
Again,
doesn't work so well for
confidentiality.
therapists, right? Yeah,
it doesn't work so well if you want to go and talk to your therapist. You don't want other people hearing what you're saying.
Group
so
therapy.
We just did 7. Yeah, it's group therapy. 7 offices. That's what we started with.
And then you said, Gio, I'll let you jump in. I have so many questions about the model. So, by the day or by the month, is that what you, like kind of a range? Like you would let people sort of book as needed, or it could be their office, like full time?
It was a good question. So because therapists, generally you want to be fairly consistent with your clients. You don't have to be rigidly consistent. Like you have to come in once a week, but there is some something that's beneficial about having like consistent planned sessions. Yep. So an example might be, I would want to see clients every Tuesday and Thursday, and I would have the same office every Tuesday, every Thursday of the month. And then we would do a 12-month lease. So we didn't opt for the short-term lease agreement where you could just come in as needed, because we wanted to create a space that was really consistent, safe. If you were a therapist there on Tuesday, hopefully you would know the other therapists or clinicians that were there as well, and sort of like get a rhythm going and like build the culture, the connection in the office. So we still use that model to this day. We have added, as we build out a website, we have an online portal where people can go in if they're already a therapy space clinician and just take out a few hours. sporadically, just as needed. If maybe
Okay.
they have 2 days with us and they're not quite ready to take a third, they can use this short-term option until they have enough clients to justify taking out a third day. So
Gio, I
just
have
try
a
to
list
reduce
of
risk.
questions, but you can jump in.
Yeah, no. So I mean, I'll tell you, I've spent a bunch of time in Nashville, Marcus, so I know it really well. And you know, it's funny you mentioned Franklin earlier, and how much it's continued to grow in the suburbs, right? I mean, you just mentioned Frisco, which is a suburb of Dallas with a ton of growth and a ton of opportunity. And I think anywhere where you have rooftops is an opportunity for this type of therapy space, right? And so I don't even know, Jamie, you know this. So when I went to a small Baptist school here in Dallas Baptist, and I played soccer there. And I was actually on track to be I have a dual degree in psychology and business. And that was my goal, was to be a counselor. And when I realized that I couldn't leave people's problems at the office, and Jamie knows me really well, is I love helping people and I'm passionate about it. And I've restarted that program twice for my master's degree. And every time we get to the ethical class part where I'm like, so I can't help my family and friends, I'm like, I'm out, because that's most of the people I get a chance to love on. So, you know, I think this space is near and dear to my heart, because you are offering a service that allows people to be poured into, right? You're giving them a chance to start a business, but also giving people a chance somewhere to go. But funny enough, kind of going back to Nashville, I've got one of my best friends that played in the major leagues, ended up with the Sound. I think they moved 83 times or something absolutely crazy like that. When they got there, they had 3 kids, and his wife was like, she was pregnant with her 4th, and she said, we're done. And so they settled in there. They actually live out in, the kids are going to the Academy of God out in Old Hickory.
Okay.
And they found an incredible just community out there. And that's what I love about Nashville, right? You mentioned coming back to the South, is you get that good old South
Southern
culture and
hospitality.
feel, right? It's so welcoming. Yeah.
Yeah.
So as you look at opportunities, going back to kind of your growth in the suburbs, I mean, what is your model? What are you looking for as far as demographics go, and kind of the overall need, right? There's a ton of opportunity across the country. So where are you finding those?
Yeah, as far as demographics go, we're looking for a concentration of people and businesses, so that you can draw from people at work during the day, clients nearby their homes in the evening, and then just finding where therapists are and clinicians are. So we're trying to go in areas where they could benefit from our service. So we're not too sophisticated in our demographics.
We can work on that.
But we need to work on that. There are many things we need to work on. That's one of them.
8 years in, you still feel like the list is never ending of, and we should get better at that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the list is growing the more we do it. Yeah, the more we do this, the more we realize we don't know. That's true about a lot of things, I guess, but it's certainly true in this space. But yeah, we find where therapists are seeing their clients, and then we create beautiful space for them. We try to make them beautiful, so they enjoy being there. Their clients feel good about being there. We want them to be safe, and easily accessible.
And so is the goal to build a network in these cities? Like, I think you have 4 here in Dallas. And so is that kind of the goal, is you're creating a network where these therapists, and we see this a lot in a lot of medical practices, right? Is they may have two different locations that they go back and forth, and lawyers do it too, right? Is so Wednesdays they're in, call it North Dallas, Tuesdays and Thursdays they're somewhere else, Central Dallas, call it. But how are y'all doing that?
Yeah, so I actually did this as well. I worked in Franklin and in Green Hills and Nashville, so kind of south of the city, and then central in the city. I wanted to draw from 2 different geographical locations. I think it's a great idea. As far as serving our clinicians well, that's something that we offer them. So they don't have to purchase 2 full-time offices in 2 different parts of the city and check. You can kind of switch freely between the locations, and then add space at either location as you start to gain a foothold. But as far as and this may be, I don't know if this is what was also your question about creating community.
Yeah.
Creating community is it's valuable for your mental well-being. There is no doubt about that. We find health in a healthy community. As a marriage and family therapist, I'm like steeped in systems theory, and it's your health is a reflection of the systems you're part of. Getting therapists and clinicians to talk and create community is difficult, which is surprising. It's surprising to us, because when they're in the office, like they are working, they're usually like back to back to back.
Right.
And so,
okay.
I mean, yeah, they're getting after it. And one of the things that we've done more recently is create lounge areas in the offices that are really inviting. Again, try to make them more beautiful, so people just kind of at least have their lunches there, hang out, and that's been great. We've seen traction with that. Where in the past we try to lure people in with CEU dinners or something like that, and but people have families, and oftentimes that would just sort of like conflict with family life. So having great space for people to connect in the office has been helpful there, trying to create community.
Well, you raise a really good point. I mean, I think part of the problem, and it's funny, you hit them both, right? Is people that have servant hearts and serve others often don't take care of themselves, right? So you hit the double whammy with the pastoral side of the business and then the therapeutic side. And I think, that's why so many therapists and pastors and people like them struggle, is because they don't have an outlet for what they hear and see and all those things. What's your outlet? I mean, how do you approach this from a healthy standpoint so that you don't stuff all those things?
Yeah, that's a great thing. I'm fairly disciplined about my self-care, because I've recognized how much I need it. But I have to have time with my wife, with our little infant, church every week, going to the gym 3 to 4 times to lift a week is really important. And then turning the phone off. We're shooting for 6 p.m. It's hard as a business owner.
6 p.m.
Yeah, that's like my goal is 6 p.m. Now I'm not always good with this. So this is like a goal in progress. But having at least limits on work. And then by the end of April, I'm actually retiring from private practice, to really just to be able to focus in one area primarily. Just spinning too many plates at one time was starting to take a toll. So I'm going to totally scale back from my private practice and focus on therapy space. And so I'm still around therapists. I still get to talk to folks and talk shop, but part of self-care will be honing my attention onto one project, and that's going to be really helpful too.
Yeah. So that's going to be hard, right? To pour into people nonstop to then go build a business, right? And that's the interesting part about therapists, is you're literally on for your entire sessions back to back to back to back, right? And so I'll be interested to connect with you in 6 months or a year and hear how that's going, because it's going to be an adjustment for sure.
Yeah, well, it is going to be an adjustment. But working with clients, you're trying to help them become more self-sufficient, to change their behaviors, to find success as they define it. And then you're doing something similar in our space, in that we're oftentimes we're taking new clinicians and like mentoring them and helping them build their practice and helping them with confidence. And so there's a lot of like pastoral elements to both, which I appreciate. I really like. It could be, our model can be reduced to you're selling office space, which sounds horrible. But there's a really strong personal component, and being in the office and getting to know everybody and know so many clinicians it's fun. So I enjoy it a lot. So I'm looking forward to just primarily focusing on one thing. But I'll keep my license, so I can always
Always go
If
back.
I start really, really missing it, I can come back.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's forever, but for the time being, as we're working on scaling and growing as quickly and as responsibly as possible, this is best for me to focus.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm curious because you mentioned just kind of, going back to what the business is about. You just mentioned you mentioned a couple things that feel conflicting. One is the clinicians, like they're in there, they're powering through, not a lot of, but you have an interest in supporting new clinicians who are maybe new to private practice, and sort of, you mentioned mentoring. What does that look like, and how, you can do that at a specific location, near where you live, but
Right.
is that something that you integrate into kind of what you offer, or is it sort of, opportunistic as it comes up?
So it's sort of evolved. So we originally, Noah and I, we would devote Mondays to meeting with clinicians, whether they were new or established, and helping them any way we could answer any questions, because he is a psychologist and he loves being in practice, and he sees clients Tuesday through Friday. And then so we would give Mondays and meet with people. I don't want to give the impression that we only have new clinicians, because we don't. That's inaccurate. We do have like a wide range of just like established veterans to new people getting
that makes complete
school.
sense that you'd have a range, right? People have been practicing for a long time.
We have a wide range.
Also, part of your why is like, how can we help people make that leap, right?
Yes.
From low rates of insurance reimbursement and, all those things into private practice. Yeah.
So as we kind of evolved, we started to recognize that it's probably helpful to have therapists be our local partners. So in other cities, we tend to have therapists running those offices, so that they are very familiar with private practice and some very basic questions that anyone can figure out if they want. It's just sometimes it's a little daunting to, if you haven't had a business development class, or haven't had a business prior, little things are just scary. And 100%. So just to have somebody that's gone a few steps ahead. So right now we're developing with one of our local partners a series of videos that will just answer questions, general questions on how to start a private practice. And so we provide those then with anybody who's onboarding. We have relationships with people who specialize specifically in marketing private practices. So we have referrals to send our folks to if they want that kind of help. And so we've gotten a little bit more systematic in our approach. Again, that's one of the things that I'm primarily working on now, as I focus on therapy spaces. Like, how can we add value to our clinicians in areas that they'd already be focusing on their own? So not selling them stuff that they don't need, or trying to upsell them, but offering them services that they're actually going to use in the space. So that's kind of where I'm focusing my attention right now.
And how do the clinicians find you? Do clinicians who want to go into private practice, like co-working's become, people are more aware of it, or office space? Like, I know I need office space. Do clinicians, are they searching for office space, or like what's sort of your funnel for someone getting to know you exist?
That's a good question. I wish one of my partners was here, because he could answer that more thoroughly. Well, I think we do have that information. That would be my guess, is that we actually do have that information. But sort of the feedback that I'm getting is especially in cities like Dallas and Nashville, there's some networking effect going on that I think we're generally known. But most people are finding us through Google or through Facebook, and coming to us through that avenue.
So you want to know something funny? Apparently, the Big Brother, Instagram, Facebook gods know that I was stalking you, because literally I cannot go through scrolling without therapy space popping up every single time I'm on it. Right? It's so crazy.
That is crazy. Yeah.
So it's working. How's that?
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad to know that we're spending good money on that, and it's actually
thank you, Mark Zuckerberg.
folks our way. Yeah.
So you mentioned you've got partners, local partners in each of these markets. It's interesting because that's actually how Salon Suites grow, right? I don't know if you knew that, Jamie,
Yep.
but they actually have a beautician or what, cosmetologist, whatever they call themselves, in each location that gets a reduced rent or free rent in exchange for kind of managing the location. How does that how do y'all do local partnerships?
We do the same. We do a reduction in their rent as well as a profit sharing.
Wow.
And you do it by market or by location?
By location.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's worked well. Having therapists especially is great. They know all the ins and outs. They know what the other therapists typically are going to need. They're able to predict needs. It's been really helpful having somebody in that space who's a clinician. But yeah, we have a salon space in the building that I'm in now. They occupy the whole first floor, and same model. They're doing great. So.
Yeah, no, it's amazing how people look at these things. They think it's a new business, but it's really, when you step back, there's plenty of other businesses that mirror it.
Mm-hmm. So Marcus,
Jamie,
your locations are not technically staffed, but the local partner is kind of interfacing with the clinicians and like available sort of physically, but not like greeting clients that come in. So is it self-serve from a, client comes in to meet with a clinician, they kind of check themselves in. What does that experience look like?
Yeah, so it is mostly self-serve. We want our local partners to be available 7 days a week if need be, but we want them to be on site at least 3 times a week.
Okay.
So we want them to be on premise 3 times a week. The offices are all cleaned every day. So we just want to make sure that somebody's there making sure everything's clean, everything is stocked. They can show the spaces, and then be there if they for whatever might come up. There's always something random that needs attention.
We know. Yes.
But but for the clients, when they come in, they arrive in the waiting room, and then we have like a little kiosk that they check into, and it's on an iPad. It's called the receptionist, but a list of clinicians come up. They can either just scroll down or search alphabetically, and then they would just click on that, put their initials in, and then it sends their therapist or their doctor a text or email or both. So they feel settled. They can kind of like settle in, hang out, read a magazine, and then the therapist also doesn't have to be waiting by the door. They can kind of do their notes or have a snack or coffee, whatever, and then know that their client's not going to be out there waiting. So that's how it works, and that for us has been great.
Yeah, it's also great. It's great for the model. It's really interesting to hear how you make this work, because you don't have to have somebody who's greeting clients, but you can have somebody who's a value add. And it sounds like they play a little bit of a marketing function if they do tours and kind of, meet with folks who are thinking about the space and support the existing clinicians or therapists. Yeah, that's a neat model. I like that a lot. Okay, I'm curious about your geographic expansion. What's the why for where you've expanded outside of Nashville?
So the why, it's two of the biggest risks are the local partner. So finding somebody that is trustworthy, that has that sort of the servant's heart, that mentality or that orientation towards others, finding that is probably the most important piece. And then looking for areas where rent is affordable, where locations are safe and buildings are welcoming, making sure there's enough concentration of clinicians that would need this service. So there's a lot of cities probably would meet those criteria. But again, I think that the big needle in the haystack is finding the right person that you want to be an extension of therapy space and to greet people. And that's difficult. That's hard to replicate. So our local partners are amazing. They're all great people, just super helpful. They're all very, very much go-getters. They don't need to be micromanaged. They're there because they love the idea. They practice themselves. They love the space, and they like helping other people.
So has your size shifted or changed any as you've progressed? Or are they still all kind of that 18 to 2,400 square feet?
Yeah, size has changed. We are typically building 35 to 4,500 square feet now.
So I'm real curious. I mean, because you were so animate about being part of pastoral care and everything else, and obviously the big part of that is this. But how has your faith base helped you in growing the business?
I think it's helped because I don't look at clinicians as customers. So I don't ever try to. We're very clear. Like, we never upsell people. We are trying to alleviate their stress. So we're trying to love them well. And we can't totally bring their risk to zero, but we try to really reduce it, because mental health services are important, and they're only becoming increasingly important. And then it's just nice to be able to like make your living doing something that's good, makes a difference positively for local communities. So, I mean, my faith background, I think, is helpful because we don't reduce people to how much money they can make us. And I think people sense that and they like it. There's trust that's sort of built in there. Trust is built as we're consistent, and treat others as we want to be treated. We try to live by the golden rule, and all the partners are that way. So it hasn't been a major there's not a I guess a faith version and then a business version. Like, they're seamlessly, I feel like, integrated, which is nice.
So do y'all participate, and going back to kind of the salon suites model, in some cases they actually participate in the business, right, with some of the therapists. But for you, are you just doing straight leasing of the space, or licensing of the space, or do you have any therapists that you actually participate in their actual practice?
No, we don't participate in anyone's practice. Everyone is their own business owner. So yeah, we provide the space and try to make that as turnkey as possible. But yeah, we're not officially, or really even unofficially, engaged in anybody's practice.
And how has HIPAA been? Have you had to do any kind of special things for HIPAA confidentiality or anything like that, the way you build out your space, or you just are building out like traditional office space?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we do is just we do sound canceling systems in our offices just to prevent carryover from office to office. That was one thing in my first location right out of school. We had to have the HVAC running, otherwise I could hear the accountant next door.
Like, you had to put the on the fan, like,
it always had to be running, otherwise you could hear what he was saying. So I assumed he could hear potentially what we were saying. So you'd have to do things like that, but that just didn't, it didn't feel as safe. So we take great efforts to make sure that what's being said in an office is only being heard between the clinician and the client. So that's a really important part.
That's a huge part that obviously any of these spaces deal with, and certainly when you're dealing with confidentiality things like a therapist's office or lawyers that are dealing with stuff like that, you got to be extra careful with those things.
Yeah.
You mentioned you have an infant, so you've got one child.
Yeah, we have one son is our first. He's amazing. His name is Marcus.
And what's his name?
Marcus Leo.
And
so it's the best thing that I've ever experienced.
What's it mean? What's it mean to you to be a father?
I don't know if I could answer that. That's a very difficult question to answer. What does it mean? The experience has been incredible. I think for the first time, understanding in a small way this idea of unconditional love, and it from an experiential point of view rather than an intellectual. Like, I get the idea, but to actually experience that has been incredible. And then as a way to live out your faith is it's also a great way to, every day you're given lots of opportunities to kind of put yourself second, and but in a beautiful way, in a joyful way, not in a way that feels like drudgery. So this has been, it's just brought so much joy and fun, and watching him grow has been incredible. And then just seeing his grandparents soak it up. So it's been amazing. Yeah.
I love the 6 p.m. device rule, by the way. I have an 11-year-old and we're in a constant discussion about device, but learning to role model that before they're old enough that they see what your behavior is super important. So keep doing that, and it'll save
the device rule, the device doesn't go away at 6 p.m. It should, and practically speaking, sometimes it does, because it's a very busy time of night, but we're getting better and better about getting off our phones. So that's a goal.
It's so hard. I'm thinking about doing the Wi-Fi turns off at a certain point. Like the smart, you can program it, it's done. We're not, nobody's turning it back on. I was thinking about that this morning. Actually, I was like, we got to do something to cut it off for my behavior as much as my kids' behavior. Okay, wait, I have another model question. I'm curious. So therapy became so incredibly important during the pandemic, and a lot of folks were talking to therapists instead of, in their cars, or, all those stories you hear about. So, but your model, it sounds like, assumes there's in-person visit still between therapy and patient. Is that the norm, or some of your therapists doing virtual therapy as well in your location?
That's a great question. So when the pandemic hit, I thought there couldn't be a worse business to be in than a physical shared office. I was like, I can't, it's hard to think of one. I'm sure there are others, but this is probably one of the worst. And it was really scary at first. Everybody was anxious, I think, therapists included, myself included. But I think what we saw was that it was hard for therapists to work from home if they had children. And since we weren't an open floor plan model, it was kind of okay to come in and use the space and shut the door. You're pretty isolated if you know.
And what's the term? What's the necessary essential? I mean, you could call a therapist essential. Yeah.
Yeah, we were considered essential workers. So if you needed to see clients via telehealth, which at the height of the pandemic, 31% of clinicians were doing telehealth. So a lot, but not as many as maybe I would have thought.
Not the majority. I would have thought it was a bigger number, like 70.
Yeah, I would have thought so too. So it's 31, and then that's coming down pretty quickly. But we did see people say, like, I did work from home, but the monotony of never leaving my home, never getting dressed, not having that sort of daily liturgy, if you will, that was wearing on the therapists. So they started using their offices, even if they weren't going to see clients in person, to see clients via telehealth. So that's when we really upgraded all of our Wi-Fi and put repeaters in all of the locations. That's something that we're doing now. And 5G, now we even recently started adding 5G cellular backup. So I think telehealth will be here to stay. I think it will always be a portion of every clinician's or most clinicians' practice, which is fine for us because we focus on less really than full-time space. So that's great. But even during that time, especially as sort of the anxiety went down and it seemed like people were getting a little bit more comfortable with it after people were getting vaccinated. We saw people coming into the office and just, they would keep the 6-foot rule, and that was possible. And we would just kind of follow CDC guidelines, and we always saw some people using the space, throughout the entire pandemic. There's always some in-person therapy going on. And then as the pandemic went on and then eventually sort of ended, I don't know if it's ended. It seems like it's ended in some cities more than others, but now it seems like it's back full full scale, and people who do in person, that's like an added benefit we're seeing. Like that's a plus. I think people are just really lonely and want to be in the same room as others. I would do some telehealth. During the pandemic, it was helpful seeing people throughout the state. That was a really cool thing to experience. But it was more difficult for me being on the screen all day, not having that interaction.
Yep.
That was making me a little bit more tired.
Yeah. Screen fatigue is real. I mean, I like need a nap when I do hours of Zoom. It'll exhaust me. And you're so right, to Gio's point earlier, like you're so active and on, you're really, kind of facilitating. It's also like therapy. It's sort of like, I understand the accessibility is like the more people get access to therapy, the better. And so if that means telehealth, but therapy feels like one of those foundational things that it's like really ideal if you do it in person versus, on a screen. So it surprises me a little bit because I guess I assumed a lot of telehealth, and maybe it's because Zuckerberg's serving up like what are all the like, there's a lot of apps and, get access to like Better Health and, all the Better Help. I don't know what they're called, but I hear ads for them all the time, like on podcasts and whatnot. So I guess I just had the sense like a lot of that was going on. And I like to hear like there's, people having in-person therapy relationships and using your spaces for that. So that's great.
Even from that standpoint as I coach people, or even as we interact with clients, such a big part of seeing body language, right? What are you doing with your hands? What's going on with your legs? I mean, you've got as a therapist, those are all things you're seeing and a lot of people don't realize it. I mean, our bodies have outward manifestations of our inside, right? Of our feelings. And so I've often wondered how, you can be helpful, but I think being in person is so much more important. Depending on who you're treating, this is a perfect segue, Jamie, into asking Marcus what his Enneagram number is.
Oh,
I don't know Enneagrams.
Oh.
That's not something I ever studied. They're huge though. They're hugely popular here.
Gio got me into it. I find it to be a really good self-awareness tool. So we love to ask our guests if they know.
I'm an ENFP if Myers-Briggs translates at all. I don't know.
I'm an ENFP too. So okay. I've got friends that tell me, they're like, we love hanging out with people like you, but we would never hire people like you. And I'm like, I don't know how I take that. But
I'm always the last one on our partner calls. I'm always the late one. So
really, Gio, you are like on time to a fault. Except you get the developer who won't let you off the call, but you're very organized and timely. Yeah, punctual, very punctual. I have the problem where I think I could do 76 things before I get on my next call in 5 minutes. So sometimes I'm like overachieving.
Not allocating enough time for all the things I think I can do in an hour. Yeah, I'm guilty of that.
Well, see, that's that ENFP, right? He's late to the calls because he's doing too many things, not because he's
similar to mine, right? Maybe a different motivation, but
yeah.
So what do you do for fun during your off time?
Oh, for fun, I spend every opportunity I can with my wife and my son. So we love going to the parks here in Nashville, going hiking Percy Warner. That's spending time with my family. I think is the most fun thing. Close friends, I enjoy hanging out with them and lifting. We probably hang out and talk more than we do lifting, but I enjoy that. And going to church on Sunday and seeing all my friends there. I think that's the main stuff I do for fun. So
that's awesome. Super relational, which is exactly why you're doing what you're doing, is helping people help others, right? And so it's like a ripple in the pond. And so that's I very much look up to you for that. And I'm inspired by people like you that are out serving others, that then can serve others.
Thanks, man.
Wait, I have one more. Gio likes to get to the soft stuff. I'm like, wait, I'm not done yet.
I've got another model question.
Did you build your own tech, or like you've got some people on longer term agreements, but you've got these like buckets of hours they can do. Do you use something off the shelf, or have you built something on your own?
Yeah, so we use we built the website, we had a developer build that out and all the backend stuff, and then we use Salesforce to help.
Interesting, with the scheduling.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, that keeps all of the leases,
Yeah.
intact. And as we grew, we realized we had to do some sort of like electronic or some sort of technological solution, because Noah and we used to have all the schedules, just on our laptops. And then if somebody was like, hey, can I just lease a Saturday out?
Right.
We would mark it down, but eventually there were so many people who were like, we're going to double book something.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be good. So we had to do a tech solution there. And so Salesforce has been really helpful keeping everybody straight.
Interesting. In the pure co-working world, there's a lot of technology that helps with scheduling. And I don't know if you ever feel like you need, not that we're here to tell you to, but so I was curious, I've not heard the Salesforce solution. So it may totally work, but.
Well, we probably need to talk, because there's so much for me to learn. So
I bet there are things you can borrow. I love your model because it's niche. And I think there's so much value, like your local partners, like you know who they should be, and most of that is because they're serving a very specific audience, right? And you can just get really deep into like, what does this person do and how do they serve, which I love. But yeah, there are certainly some things you could borrow from the co-working world that might just help like operationally, so as you scale. So that would be maybe my final question. What's next now that you get to focus on the business? Like, what are the few things you're looking forward to working on?
Like I said, I'm focusing on adding value. So providing general liability, malpractice insurance to our clinicians at a discounted rate for them. So working on bringing that to fruition. But as far as scaling, we are actively looking for a new Franklin, Tennessee location. I'm flying to Houston next week to scout out a new office there. And we're very interested as more of us go full time on finding new offices and just kind of like plowing ahead. It's so much work, from identifying a location, a local partner, getting the build out done, permitting. The move-in weekends are crazy. It's just, each one is blood, sweat, and tears. So we just have to keep ourselves going. Once we get done with one, we gotta make sure we're ready for the next one. And so just excited to expand and keep it up. And
are y'all
mine's kind of blown that you and Noah have done all of this, like, and still had your private practice.
Yeah,
it's been incredible. I'm sure in a way, maybe it keeps you like hyper like efficient in some way, but to your point, I mean, it's a lot. It's an incredible amount of work to open new locations. And how many locations do you have total?
We have 18.
Okay. Wow.
18.
It's a great pace.
And we've had help along the way. We have a couple of other partners that have been really helpful. Okay. And now we're hiring more labor out on those move-in weekends. So we're getting more efficient. We're learning with each location. And anyway, but the thing I'm most excited about is the growth. We grew 70% last year. I think we'll do that again this year. And we just want to try to keep going as we can, being conservative while still growing. That's the balance.
Well, we are, again, super grateful that you joined us and talked more about therapy space. I think it's an amazing just opportunity to give back. And obviously it's super niche driven. And so look forward to staying in touch and hearing more about how your growth continues as you kind of step into that growth mode instead of your focus on your practice. So thanks again for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm honored. So I appreciate the interest, and I've enjoyed it.
I'll keep stalking you. Don't worry about it.
Awesome. Thank you. Give me a shout when you come to Nashville.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Marcus.